eyes flickered through the fog, a reminder that the battle was far from over. But in that moment, amid the ruins and rust, hope kindled anew, fierce, determined, and unyielding. "Rest now," Kael said, voice low but carrying weight. "Tomorrow we fight again." And with that, the crew braced themselves for the trials ahead, ready to face the heart of the mechanical storm. The night deepened, wrapping Steelbone in a blanket of uneasy silence. Yet beneath the surface, the city's heartbeat thrummed with the promise of survival and the unbreakable ties of found family. Somewhere in the toxic sea, the warden's mechanical beasts stirred, waiting for the next move. But Kael and his crew had learned one thing. Survival was not just about strength, but about unity, trust, and the fierce will to endure against all odds. The mechanical menace was coming, and Steelbone would not fall without a fight. The horizon shimmered faintly, hinting at dangers yet unseen. The question lingered like the fading light. How long could they hold the line before the sea itself claimed them? The voyage was far from over. Joran sat hunched over a battered workbench, his slender fingers tracing the faded lines of an ancient schematic sprawled across the table. The dim flicker of a sputtering lantern cast long shadows across the cramped room, illuminating the contours of the fragile paper and the fine dust that clung to every surface. His cracked glasses caught the faint glow of a pulsating diagram embedded within the drawing, an intricate lattice of gears, conduits, and glowing nodes that seemed almost alive. Kael leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed, eyes narrowed but attentive. Lena sat nearby, her sun-kissed skin illuminated softly by the lantern's light, fingers absently twining a strand of her hair as she watched Joran work. The silence between them was thick with anticipation, each heartbeat a drumbeat of hope and fear. This changes everything," Joran finally breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. He lifted his gaze, eyes shining with the weight of revelation. "The artifact isn't just a source of power. It's a regulator, a key to the balance of the toxic sea itself." Kael's brows furrowed deeply. "Balance? What do you mean?" Joran tapped a section of the schematic, and with a gentle push, a holographic projection shimmered to life above the table. The image flickered, coalescing into a three-dimensional map of the sea's currents, intertwined with mechanical nodes and energy flows. The artifact was designed to control the delicate equilibrium between the sea's toxicity and the life it supports. It manages the mechanical beasts, the circulation of toxins, even the currents that keep Steelbone afloat. Without it, the sea will spiral into chaos. Lena's voice was soft but steady. "So the warden's obsession with it isn't just about power. It's about control over life and death in this world." Joran nodded, his fingers hovering over another part of the projection. Suddenly, the image shifted, revealing a figure, a tall, imposing man clad in patchwork armor, his glowing red lenses piercing the holographic gloom. The warden's visage flickered, morphing between a stern guardian and a tormented tyrant. "He was once the sea's protector," Joran explained, voice heavy with melancholy. "A guardian who kept the balance for generations. But after losing everything to the very chaos he sought to contain, his faith in humanity shattered. His heart twisted by grief and paranoia." Kael's jaw clenched. "So he became what we fight against." "Exactly," Joran said. "The artifact holds the power to restore the sea's balance, but in the wrong hands, it could bring ruin to Steelbone and everything we fight to protect." A heavy silence settled over the room as the weight of this knowledge sank in. Outside, the toxic sea churned relentlessly, waves of acidic green foam crashing against the city's patchwork hulls. The distant roar of mechanical beasts echoed faintly through the night, a haunting reminder of the stakes ahead. Lena reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Kael's arm. We have to succeed. For Steelbone, for everyone we care about. Kael looked down at her hand, then back at Joran's glowing schematics. Then we move forward. But armed with this truth, we can't afford mistakes. The Warden won't stop until he has the artifact. Neither can we. Joran's lips pressed into a thin line. We need to understand everything about the artifact, its mechanisms, vulnerabilities, and how to harness its power safely. It's the only way to protect Steelbone and prevent the Warden from plunging the sea into darkness. As the lantern's light flickered once more, the three of them bent over the ancient schematics, minds racing to piece together a fragile hope in the heart of a relentless storm. The secrets of the artifact had been unveiled, but the true test was still to come. Beyond the walls of their sanctuary, the endless toxic sea awaited, its waves whispering promises of peril and salvation alike. The balance of life and death, hope and despair, rested in their hands and in the heart of the artifact, now pulsing softly beneath their fingertips. The voyage into the depths of truth had only just begun, and with it, the fate of Steelbone hung ever more precariously in the balance. The endless, poisonous sea, a swirling canvas of rust and decay, stretched beyond the horizon, swallowing the sun's weak glow and leaving the city bathed in a sickly yellow haze. In the heart of this precarious sanctuary, the air was thick with the acrid smoke of burning oil and the sharp attempts of rusted metal corroding, faster than repairs could be made. Kael stood on the central engine platform, his lean frame silhouetted against the faltering machinery that was the city's beating heart. The dull roar of the engines was faltering, punctuated by unsettling groans and clanks that set his teeth on edge. His dark hair, streaked with premature grey, whipped in the bitter wind that sliced through the city's patchwork hulls. His sharp eyes scanned the sprawling tangle of pipes, wires, and scrap assembled into something that defied collapse for now. The engines are failing faster than we predicted. Grav's gruff voice broke the tense silence. The heavy weapons specialist and engineer was beside Kael, wiping sweat and grime from his scarred face. We're losing pressure in the main conduits. If we don't stabilize them soon, the whole city could go dark. Kael's jaw tightened. Then we don't have time to waste. Every moment we delay, the sea tightens its grip. Around them, the city creaked and shifted, metal plates buckling under the relentless assault of corrosive storms. The toxic sea hissed and spat at the city's edges, and somewhere far below, mechanical beasts prowled, their glowing red eyes watching, waiting. Inside the infirmary, Lena moved with steady purpose, her sun-kissed skin glowing softly beneath the dim glow of flickering lamps. The cramped rooms smelled of herbs and antiseptics, a fragile sanctuary amid the chaos. She tended a young crew member, pale and trembling from poisoning after a recent storm. "You're going to be all right," Lena whispered, her voice a soothing balm against the harshness outside. Her hands, gentle yet sure, worked swiftly to stem the toxins coursing through the boy's veins. "We'll get through this. We always do." The toll of the city's decline was written in every injury, every sickness that passed through her hands. Yet Lena's fierce optimism shone bright, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. Meanwhile, in the engine room, Mira and Grav worked side by side, their faces grim under the harsh light of sparking welding torches. The bitter chill of the toxic sea seeped through cracks, clashing with the heat of their work. "If we lose that conduit, half the city's power shuts down," Grav muttered, sweat beating on his brow. Myra's fiery red hair was damp with grime, her piercing green eyes locked on the tangled mess of wires. "Then we fix it," no excuses. We don't leave Steelbone to rot here. Their banter was tight, underscored by fear and fierce loyalty. The weight of their shared responsibility pressed heavy on their shoulders. Elsewhere, in the cramped quarters of the crew, Joran sat hunched over ancient schematics, the lines and symbols, a language he had devoted himself to deciphering. His cracked glasses reflected the flickering light of a dying lamp as he traced the faint outlines of an artifact rumored to hold the key to Steelbone's salvation. "If this is right," Joran murmured, "then the artifact isn't just a myth. It's a power source, maybe even capable of restoring balance to these waters." The quiet hope in his voice was a stark contrast to the storm of despair gathering beyond the city's fragile hull. The worsening condition of Steelbone was more than a backdrop. It was a living, breathing menace that tightened the noose around the crew's mission. Every faltering engine, every toxic storm, every creak and groan was a reminder that time was not on their side. Kael's gaze hardened. "We leave at first light. We cannot wait for the city to die around us." Mira stepped forward, her voice low but fierce. "And if we don't make it back, then Steelbone sinks," Kael replied, but not without a fight. The crew gathered around, each face etched with exhaustion, fear, and a stubborn spark of defiance. They were a found family forged in hardship, bound by a shared resolve to survive against all odds. The toxic winds howled as night fell over Steelbone, carrying with them the distant howls of mechanical beasts prowling the outskirts. The city trembled, but its heart still beat, and so did theirs. As the first pale light of dawn crept over the horizon, the crew readied themselves to sail into the unknown, the weight of their city's fate heavy on their shoulders. The voyage promised danger, sacrifice, and the faintest glimmer of hope. Kael took one last look at Steelbone, the city adrift but unbroken. "For Steelbone," he whispered, and with that, they stepped into the uncertain future, where survival was the only certainty. The engines groaned beneath them, a symphony of metal and fire that resonated through the bones of the city. The toxic sea stretched endlessly, a grim mirror reflecting their desperation. Yet, in that twilight between ruin and hope, the crew of Steelbone found their purpose renewed, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The journey to salvation had become a race against time itself, and failure was a luxury none could afford. Inside the cramped quarters and out on the deck, the hum of the failing engines was replaced for once by the gentle crackle of fire. It was an odd kind of warmth, this fire built from salvaged scraps and flammable bits of old tech. But it was enough to gather the crew together, to form a circle of closeness amid the endless expanse of toxic water. Kael sat close to the blaze, the flickering light dancing over the sharp angles of his weathered face. His usual stoicism softened as he glanced around at the faces illuminated by the firelight mirror. Restless and fiery, Joran with his thoughtful gaze, Lena's serene presence, Grav's steady bulk, and young Tess, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and determination. For a long moment, no one spoke. The distant roar of the toxic sea was a constant reminder of the dangers waiting just beyond their fragile refuge. Yet here, in this circle of light, those threats felt distant. Mira broke the silence with a teasing nudge toward Joran. "Come on, bookworm, you owe us a story. Something to keep the night alive, yeah." Joran adjusted his cracked glasses, cheeks flushing slightly under the warmth of the fire and the eyes upon him. "Well," he began, voice soft but steady, "there's an old legend about the machines that once ruled these waters, giants of metal and steam, born from human hands but far beyond human control. They say the artifact we seek is tied to their power, a key to restoring balance." The group leaned in, captivated by the blend of mystery and melancholy woven into Joran's tale. Myra's eyes gleamed with renewed purpose as she exchanged a glance with Kael, who nodded slowly, his mind already turning over the implications. After the story, Kael found himself compelled to share a piece of his own past, a rarity for the guarded captain. "I lost my family to the storms," he said quietly, voice rough with memory. "Those storms were worse than anything this sea can throw at us. I promised then, in the silence after the worst had passed, that I'd protect this city, this crew. We're all that's left." The crew listened in silence, the weight of Kael's words settling over them like a mantle. It was a rare moment of vulnerability from their leader, and it deepened the unspoken bonds that tied them together. Lena moved gently among them, her hands deft as she tended to a scrape on Tessa's arm and offered cups of bitter herbal tea brewed from the last of Steelbone's garden herbs. Her voice was soft and steady, a balm for both body and spirit. "We've all got wounds," she said, "but together we heal." Grav chuckled, the sound rough but affectionate. "Only you could make poison water taste like hope," he teased, earning a smile from Lena and a lightening of the mood. As the fire burned lower, the crew shared thoughts of home, of fears, and of dreams. In the face of relentless adversity, these moments of connection were their true salvation, knitting a found family out of lost souls. The toxic sea might rage beyond their fragile walls, but here, under the scant stars and the flickering firelight, hope was alive. Yet, as the night deepened and the fire sputtered, an unspoken question lingered in the air. How long could this fragile peace last before the sea demanded its due once more? The crew looked toward the horizon, each silently steeling themselves for the trials that awaited. Bound tighter than ever by the stories, the pain, and the fierce, bittersweet determination to survive. And so, with hearts heavier yet stronger, they settled into the night, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also the strength of the bonds forged on this night. Bonds that might just be the key to Steelbone's salvation. The sea whispered its endless song, but within the circle of firelight, the crew's voices rose in quiet defiance, a testament to the enduring power of found family amid desolation. As the first light of dawn threatened the horizon, Kael's gaze hardened with resolve. The voyage was far from over, and the hardest trials yet awaited. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough to face the coming storm. The fire died down to embers, but the warmth it left behind would linger in their hearts as they prepared to sail deeper into the unknown. The night's stories, laughter, and shared hopes were not just fleeting comfort. They were the steel in their bones, the unbreakable core of Steelbone's legacy, and they would need every ounce of it. Steelbone's scavenger vessel, the Iron Wraith, creaked and groaned as it sliced through the sluggish waves of the toxic sea. The noxious water churned around them, bubbling with chemical effervescence and the faint hum of submerged machinery. Every breath was a reminder of the peril they faced, not just from the environment, but from what lurked beneath. Kael stood at the helm, his lean frame rigid despite the weariness etched deep into his weathered face. His dark hair, streaked prematurely with grey, fluttered in the acidic breeze. He squinted into the greenish fog that swallowed the horizon, searching for signs of the forbidden waters. An expanse whispered about in Steelbone's alleys, a place where few dared to tread. Here, the rules of survival were rewritten, and every mistake could mean the end. "We're close," Joran said softly from behind Kael, his cracked glasses catching the flicker of the dim lanterns hung along the deck. His pale fingers clutched a weathered map, worn at the edges but still legible. The currents matched the readings in the ancient schematics. Mira paced nearby, her fiery red hair a stark contrast against the muted colors of the ship. Her green eyes scanned the dense fog, sharp and alert. "Too close," she muttered, voice tight. "This sea wants to swallow us whole." Kael didn't reply immediately. He was lost in thought, fingers twitching as if already manipulating unseen gears. The memories of past losses his family lost to toxic storms, the weight of failed promises pressed on him like the heavy air around them. But he stood firm, the captain's resolve steeling him against the creeping dread. "Prepare for mechanical scouts," Grav's gruff voice interrupted the silence. The engineer stood near the weapon racks, his broad shoulders tense beneath his patched jacket. "They've been spotted beneath us." The crew snapped into action. Tess, young and nimble, darted to the crow's nest, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. Lena moved quietly among the crew, her satchel of herbs and medkits at the ready. The atmosphere buzzed with nervous energy, the kind born from facing death but refusing to yield. Suddenly, the water erupted. From the murky depths, mechanical beasts surfaced, hulking monstrosities pieced together from rusted scrap and glowing with ominous red lenses. Their limbs scraped the hull, their metallic joints creaking like the groan of a dying engine. The creatures circled, hunting, probing for weakness. Mira's voice cut through the tension. "Positions now." The crew scrambled to their stations. Kael's hands moved with practiced precision, firing warning shots that sparked against the beast's armor. Grav readied heavy weapons, while Jorin monitored electronic signals, calling out patterns and weaknesses. Lena's calm presence steadied the crew's nerves, her voice a soothing undercurrent beneath the chaos. Despite the fear, a fierce determination blossomed. This was their home's salvation or its doom. The Iron Wraith danced through the toxic waves, dodging snapping jaws and spiked limbs. The crew's unity, fragile yet unbroken, became their shield. Later, in the cramped cabin lit by flickering lamps, Kael and Mira faced each other. The air was thick with unsaid fears and the weight of command. "We pushed too far," Mira said, frustration lacing her words. This could be the end. Kael's eyes met hers, sharp and unwavering. "If we don't push, there is no hope. Steelbone crumbles while we wait." A tense silence stretched between them, a clash of wills tempered by mutual respect. They both bore scars, visible and invisible, and both knew the stakes. Jorin traced the route on the map again, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "The artifact lies just beyond this stretch. We must trust each other to see this through." Lena placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, a silent pledge of support. As the Iron Wraith edged deeper into the forbidden waters, the toxic fog thickened. The mechanical beasts disappeared momentarily beneath the waves, but their menace lingered. The crew braced themselves, hearts pounding in unison. The journey was far from over. Amid the swirling mists and the ceaseless hum of the toxic sea, hope flickered like a fragile flame, refusing to be extinguished. The crew of the Iron Wraith stood together, a found family bound by survival and fierce determination. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. The city, a jigsaw of battered scrap and flickering lights, groaned softly beneath the weight of its own fragility. Somewhere deep within the labyrinth of metal and pipes, the engines coughed and sputtered, their failing heartbeat a reminder of the city's precarious existence. On the edge of this drifting world, Kael sat hunched over a worn piece of machinery, his eyes shadowed, hands stained with grease and blood. Lena approached quietly, her footsteps light against the creaking deck, a satchel of herbs slung over her shoulder. She knelt beside him, her fingers gentle as she wrapped a cloth around a fresh bruise on his knuckles. "You're pushing too hard," she murmured, her voice soft but firm. Kael looked up, meeting her steady gaze. "If I don't fix this, we all sink." His voice was rough, edged with exhaustion, but laced with an unyielding determination. Lena's eyes softened, reflecting the flickering light of the lamps that struggled to hold back the darkness. "You don't have to carry this alone," she said, her words a bomb to the silent storm raging within him. The two sat in companionable silence, the distant hum of the sea a constant backdrop. Slowly, Lena began to speak of her past, the communal gardens where she had grown up, a place of life and color amidst the decay. Her voice wove stories of hope and healing, of hands that nurtured not only wounds but spirits. Kael listened, the sharp edges of his guarded heart beginning to soften. When it was his turn, he shared fragments of his own story, the storms that had stolen his family, the bitter guilt that had driven him into the shadows of leadership. For the first time in years, vulnerability passed between them like a fragile thread binding to wounded souls. As the night deepened, the pair moved to the city's edge, where the toxic sea stretched out beneath a sky bruised with the colors of a distant storm. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and metal, the horizon flickering with restless shadows. Kael's gaze was fixed on the churning waters, memories rising like ghostly waves. Lena stood beside him, her presence steady and reassuring. No words were needed. Their shared silence spoke volumes of loss, of survival, and of the fragile hope that still flickered within Steelbone's battered heart. Suddenly, a distant howl shattered the quiet, the unmistakable cry of mechanical beasts prowling the city's outskirts. The sound was a jarring reminder of the threats that lurked beyond their fragile sanctuary. Kael's jaw clenched, and Lena's hand found his shoulder. In that moment, their bond was a shield against the encroaching darkness, a testament to the fierce, bittersweet determination that defined their lives. "We'll face them together," Lena said firmly, the conviction in her voice echoing the unspoken promise between them. Kael nodded, the weight on his shoulders feeling a little lighter. Together, they turned back toward the heart of Steelbone, ready to fight for the city and the found family they had forged amidst the shifting scrap and endless sea. The echoes of loss lingered, yet within them stirred the seeds of renewal, a fragile but unbreakable hope that even in the face of desolation, survival was possible. And as the night held its breath, the two leaders stood united, their shared strength a beacon against the gathering storm. The hull, once a mighty vessel, now claimed by rust and decay, lay half submerged, its silhouette a ghostly reminder of a lost age. Kael stood at the prow of their makeshift submersible, eyes narrowed against the filtered gloom, his lean frame rigid with focus. Around him, the murmurs of the crew mingled with the faint hum of the vessel's engines, struggling to maintain position above the wreck. "Keep tight, stay sharp." Kael's voice broke the heavy silence, steady and commanding. Mira, fiery and alert, tightened her grip on her weapon, her piercing green eyes scanning the darkened waters. Joran adjusted his cracked glasses, clutching a waterproofed satchel filled with ancient schematics and tools, his pale face etched with a mixture of excitement and nerves. Lena moved calmly among them, the ever-present satchel of herbs and bandages slung over her shoulder, ready to heal the inevitable wounds this perilous dive would bring. Grav, broad-shouldered and scarred, checked the heavy weapons one last time, his gruff demeanor masking the tension knotting his muscles. The submersible's hatch hissed open, and the crew slipped into the murky water,